pleasure to be speaking in the 2020 Africa Brand Summit. I will be talking about resuscitating and remodeling African agriculture post-COVID-19 pandemic. Although it is still continuing and we are not over yet. Just as an introduction, my name is Neeraj Vij. I'm the Regional Sector Manager at African Development Bank, based out of its Pretoria office. I cover the Southern Africa region for industry, agriculture, and human development. Talking about the context, national and regional value chains are increasingly becoming an important source for food for many African countries. 80% of the African food consumption is purchased from supply chains. Recent trends and challenges will profoundly affect the agri-food sector in the next decades. Some of the reasons for this are rapid urbanization, rapid diet changes in urban and rural areas. There's a rise in consumption of processed foods and nutritional changes. About 60% of the food today is consumed by urban areas. COVID-19 is the latest impact on agri-food systems in Africa. COVID-19 has exposed vulnerabilities and inequalities in domestic food production, which drastically threaten self-sufficiency and food security, having devastating effects on jobs and livelihoods. The need for both short-term and long-term investment in critical sectors has arisen because of these issues. Now, we are talking about how to respond to COVID-19. Alarmed by the potential rise in food insecurity during COVID-19 pandemic, many countries and organizations, they mounted specific efforts to keep agriculture sector running. At the country level, agriculture was declared as an essential service in many countries. There were export restrictions put in place. There was cross-border trade. Despite the pandemic, the cross-border trade in food and inputs continued to carry on. As a result, the sector kept safely running despite logistical and trade challenges. At the global level, DFIs like IMF, World Bank, and African Development Bank announced resources to support COVID-19 activities, including agriculture, in the form of budget support and projects. For example, AFDB ran a $10 billion program to support COVID-19 pandemic response, and World Bank Group ran a program for $50 billion, whereas G20 has contributed around $200 billion as a response to COVID-19 pandemic. IFIs are working with governments and partners to closely monitor supply chains and ensuring that they continue to function despite the pandemic. Now, let us talk about some of the impacts that COVID-19 has had on the food sector. So it has led to disruptions in food supply chains, which is the component of logistic disruptions, transport restrictions and border control delays, non-tariff barriers between countries, which continue to hamper trade, as well as movement controls. There has been a reduction in food demand, as well as purchasing power. African countries with supply exposure to external markets, there has been a slowdown in informal economy. There have been decreasing incomes and remittances, which have impacted consumption of food. And there has been a closure of commercial food establishments like restaurants and hotels. There has been increase in food prices. At the level of individual consumers, food inflation has been rising in several countries. Globally, some of the commodities have seen significant rise in prices. For example, global rice prices have gone up by 37%. So as a result, the agriculture production has remained resilient, though it has been affected by labor shortage as well as availability of inputs in some countries. But the food sector has still been affected by other challenges as we covered above. Now let us talk about how does the future look like from here. As early as 2017, McKinsey Global Institute estimated that 14% of the global workforce will need to be reskilled entirely, and 40% will need partial reskilling to continue their current occupations. The most pressing challenge facing Africa is youth unemployment. Agriculture and agribusiness offer significant upside potential. A mix of skills is urgently needed to address this challenge. Directly related skills include farm, business management, production techniques, crop science, animal husbandry, as well as indirect skills, which include scientific R&D, ICT, fintech, planning, etc. One positive consequence of COVID-19 is that it will provide an opportunity to reshape national production, encourage transformation, and foster inclusive growth. For example, digital technologies can play a big role to mitigate effects of the crisis on youth. Governments and businesses need to increase their investments in digital skills development. For example, African Development Bank's Coding for Employment e-learning platform, which was launched in 2019 to equip African youth with advanced digital skills. Since the start of the pandemic, the number of users on the platform has increased by 50%. If we talk about technology again, then digital technology will impact numerous aspects of agriculture, including production, post-harvest handling, market access, finance, supply chain management, distribution, safety, traceability, etc. It will also manifest itself in numerous ways, including increased use of mobile phones and other digital technologies to access customized, actionable information in real time. It is an ideal medium to deliver customized crop-specific agricultural advice at scale and at low cost. This has important implications for DFIs and other stakeholders. Technology will significantly impact the development of improved seeds and fertilizers, drought-resistant and high-yield crops, as well as combating of pests and crop monitoring, etc. In external markets, increased use will be made of AI, automation, mechanization, robotics, and other labor-saving devices. Some of this will be COVID-19 or health-driven. For example, automated milking machines. The challenge for Africa will be to optimize the use of appropriate technology while preserving agri-related employment. If we look at what are the potential investment opportunities that are arising from this, investment in agriculture infrastructure is urgently needed to reverse trends towards greater urbanization and slow the rural-urban drift. This requires a better understanding of linkages and interdependencies within agricultural and food value chains, and a jettisoning of traditional silo approaches. There is a need to invest in agricultural research to improve yields, develop drought-resistant crops and early warning systems, and promote sustainable farming practices, for example, minimum tillage. These must be matched with support for local food systems with shorter, fewer, and cleaner supply chains that address local priorities. Strong connections must be built between the environment and food security policies. This requires a fair, transparent, and smart regulatory environment that stakeholders have confidence in. Going forward, proactive partnering and stakeholder engagement will be increasingly important and visible in the form of public-private partnership and structured finance opportunities. Let me take you through some of the examples of the work that African Development Bank is doing. Looking at private sector, the bank has launched a youth employment and skills development program in Southern Africa. It is a flagship PPP initiative to maximize youth employment and skills related impact in identified priority sectors. Value chain infrastructure support such as digitally enabled commission and agent, formal fresh fruit and vegetable markets initiative to connect customers and suppliers. Tripartite, communal, cooperative, corporate, export-oriented, integrated goat farming initiative with abattoir, feedlot, feed production, and downstream production of leather, goat milk, and cheese. Then a blended financing initiative which combines DFI resources, local institutional capital, and government grants to capitalize on SME-focused transformative agricultural fund in South Africa. A coupon-free warrant-based mezzanine finance facility in an integrated poultry farming operation. Some other initiatives include digital squat farming with unitized livestock ownership, disruptive agri-tech and fintech initiatives. If we talk about some of the public sector or PPP initiatives, then the bank is working in the areas of agri-parks and agro-industrial parks, including in Bokamoso, Merafong, Protea, then regional agri-processing hubs. For example, we are looking at opportunities in Mauritius as well as Botswana. Then PPP opportunities such as Mega Seed Park in Zambia, Magmi Mazola Agri and Ecotourism Corridor in Eastern Cape, MRP Foundation Agri Fund, SA Cotton Cluster, looking at clothing and textile value chain. Subnational prospects include Dubai Trade Port SEZ Agri Zone. DTPC is owned by KZN government. And we are also looking at launching a project preparation funding initiative for industrial projects. AFDB has also been making multiple efforts in mobilizing financing from other financiers. Some of the solutions that the bank offers in terms of debt solutions offers senior debt and lines of credit, mezzanine finance, corporate finance, and project finance. AFDB routinely co-finances projects and undertakes syndicated financing. Lead syndication is available for large projects greater than $100 million. Other instruments include credit enhancements, guarantees, and risk participation agreements. The bank also provides equity solutions. As at end of December 2018, AFDB's active NSO equity portfolio comprised 53 invested funds and 25 direct equity funds. Cumulative committed equity investments totaled $1.7 billion. Sectorially relevant examples of thematic private equity investments include Africa Food Security Fund, Patisa Food Funds 1 and 2, and similar others. The bank also provides quasi-equity support as required. Over the past 20 years, AFDB's trust fund portfolio has grown from 25 funds disbursing 8 million annually to 39 funds, which are disbursing more than $100 million per annum. Sectorially relevant examples include Africa Fast Track Fund, Africa Fertilizer Financing Mechanism, and similar others. The AFDB also provides technical assistance with support from AFDB Fund, which is provided to African private sector for multiple activities. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. We will move on immediately to the next speaker. But again, just to remind you before we do that,